Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Surviving to Thriving for highly sensitives, or as I usually say, highly sensing folks. So good to have you here again. We're here to just talk about everything high sensitivity to help you go from that place of struggle and wishing things were very different to really embracing the trait and just being thrilled with all of the benefits that it brings, even in spite of some of that struggle. So I'm glad to have you here as always, and following up on this month's theme of honoring yourself. And, you know, when we do as highly sensing people tend to make a lot of comparisons with others and what our ideal is of who we should be, and using that word should, we have a lot of shoulds that tend to come into play. And so it's always good to kind of do a little check on that with ourselves as often as we can. We do the check of like, how am I doing? What do I need? But it's also really good to be checking in with, what are my expectations for myself and others, of course, but really being aware that, yes, we might have some pretty unrealistic expectations. Not that others who aren't highly sensing don't have the same thing, but we are a little bit more prone toward that direction. So just being aware of that and remembering that, so high sensitivity is sort of like a gatekeeper or a tool that helps us to really tune in. It increases our awareness, keeps us really connected with things, and lets us know, if something needs to be changed. I mean, there's really good reasons for it. And so we need to remember that it is here for a purpose. And it's not something that we just need to try our best to get rid of, but to honor it and honor ourselves as highly sensing people, and just take that journey of finding out how is it that this can really be a benefit, not only to others and humanity or the planet, but to myself as well. So that's really what this month is all about, is trying to see how we can do that, how we can go forward, honoring where we're at and trying to get rid of that idea that we just need to be different and get rid of this sensitivity, because for one, that's not going to happen. But for two, it's really amazing. And so with the right tools, it's just an integral part of enjoying life and really getting a lot of meaning out of everything. So one of the things that does come up in my mind, and I haven't always verbalized this very much, because I do talk a lot about, you don't have to change, you are who you are as a highly sensing person, and that's amazing. I want to make sure that I'm not putting out this idea that you don't have to change anything about you or your behavior or, strive to improve yourself, because that's a very different thing. We can change our habits and our behaviors, the way we interact with people, the things that we think about in situations that we react to in certain ways. There are a lot of things that we can focus on. We can develop all these tools so that we can cope, in a more effective way. It's always great. We're usually very curious and we love to learn all kinds of things. So learning more about ourselves is really great. Learning more about the world, all of that stuff is fabulous. And it's really important to have that mindset of I can continually improve myself, being more of the person that I am and want to show the world. But that's very different from saying, no, I'm good. I don't have to do anything. People just need to like me the way I am, which, I mean, that's true, but we need to take responsibility for who we are and what we are presenting to the world. So I just wanted to put that out there. So it didn't seem like I was just saying, oh, no matter what people tell you, or no matter what happens, you're good and you don't have to change anything. But seeing that as a difference between changing the core of who you actually are. So not saying, oh, I'm left-handed, I now need to be right-handed and then I'm okay. Or I'm a highly sensing person, I need to be not highly sensing and then I'll be okay. So that's a core, not just a value, it's our being, right? We are highly sensing. So that is what we don't need to change. And we don't need to be less sensitive, but there are plenty of things that we can always strive to improve within ourselves and our relationships and how we approach the world, having all those tools and a different mindset about things at times so that we can shift those behaviors that aren't working or experiences that just keep happening over and over again, there's probably something that we're not paying attention to, or we haven't acknowledged that we can shift to make that easier for ourselves, to make it work better for other people. So I just wanted to make that really clear, that, it's not, it's the behaviors or the thoughts or the experience that we can shift. We are amazing and perfect at our core of who we really are. So one of the things that comes up quite often is things like criticism, being rejected, having any kind of disagreement. Those things can be very challenging, awkward, feel really yucky for us as highly sensing people, especially. I mean, a lot of people have issues with that and don't like that experience, but for us, that tends to be that much more prominent. We really try to avoid all of those things. Sometimes that means shutting down. Sometimes it means avoiding people or situations. Sometimes it means getting stepped on, not setting our boundaries because we don't want to offend anyone or have that even deal with a disagreement. So being aware that that's just part of life and people don't see us the same way as we see them. If we're talking about sensitivity, yes and no, we need to be aware that we have our own experience of life and everyone else has their experience. Those aren't always going to jive, and we can try to understand one another, but we can't quite get, what everything is like coming from them. But when we are feeling rejected by people or having that disagreement with someone, it's easier for us to sit back and go, must be something wrong with me, or I just need to not ruffle any feathers. I need to make sure everything's just smooth, and we do like things to flow nicely. But we also need to not only stand up for ourselves and say, this isn't okay for me. I need to change this situation. And it might feel awkward. And then it's also good to say, we're going to disagree. Things are going to not go perfectly constantly. And we don't want to let go of our needs and retract those boundaries and just say, oh, okay, not a big deal, and not stick with what's important to us and what resonates. So sometimes we do have to have that level of discomfort and that acceptance that this isn't going to feel real good, but I need to set this boundary, or I need to do this in a different way, and it might ruffle some feathers. And so honoring the fact that that's okay, because it's important to honor ourselves and to get our needs met and do things in a way that does, resonate, even if it's not the same as the majority of other people, recognizing that, well, that's the way it is. If we were left-handed and we requested to sit at the other side of the table so that we weren't bumping elbows or something, should we think badly about ourselves for that? Of course not, right? So we don't need to think badly of ourselves for making adjustments to a situation that we're seeing differently than someone else, and helping them understand, oh yeah, I know this is probably different for you, but this is my reality. This is my experience. Can we work through this to make this, feasible for both of us? So being able to be in that place of honoring and saying, yeah, I'm worth, making this shift, setting this boundary, asking for this support. And that can take some time, some practice for sure, because it can really feel uncomfortable if we're always people pleasing, if we're trying to be perfect, if we're not wanting to have a disagreement, not feel rejected. But when that type of stuff happens, it's good to sit with ourselves and say, okay, I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling misunderstood. I'm feeling hurt. Sit with that and allow that, and then acknowledge, okay, that probably comes from what? Like a whole series of potential responses there, right? It could be that someone's misunderstanding the situation. It could be that someone is kind of trying to give you a little nudge on something, but maybe it's not in a way that works for you. It might be just that this person sees things so completely different. They cannot comprehend what it is you're doing or why. And it's easy for them to say, well, it should be this way. And as a reminder, I have talked about this before, but we have to do the same thing. Just because we understand what we're doing doesn't mean that everyone else can or should, because they come from a different place. So if we're not getting our needs met, or we're not getting our point across, it's easy for us to have judgment and say, what is going on? How can this person not understand what is happening for me? And the reality is they're, in the same place. What? I can't understand what this person's doing. Why in the world would they be upset about this? So we have to remember that that goes both ways. And if we feel ourselves really judging, first, again, recognizing, okay, that person's coming from a different place. They're not going to get it. I'm not going to get it. We just need to find a middle ground there. But also really looking at, are we honoring and feeling that we are worth that, the good outcome there. So are we being so judgmental about ourselves that we can't help but be super judgmental with somebody else? And that's, again, across the board that happens. We have to be really solid in our self-love and self-acceptance if we're going to be presenting that to others. And so if we're really struggling with that, it's going to be harder for us to connect with someone else on that level without that judgment, without those expectations. So coming back to ourselves often and saying, okay, how am I treating myself right now? What am I telling myself about me in this situation? And just do some checking there to see what might be popping up that you're reacting to if you're talking, with someone else and feeling judgmental and feeling like they're needing to do something different. And of course, they have their behaviors. Some are going to resonate for you and some not. You have yours and same. So it's a balancing act, but just recognizing that comes, from both directions. And a lot of those judgments we have when we see someone else doing something that we're so frustrated with, it's because we ourselves would never do it that way. And it doesn't mean it's good or bad, right or wrong. It's just we would never come up with that because of the way we approach things. And so letting go of that, having that reality, that realization, and then letting go of that judgment based on it and say, oh, right, they come from a different place. To them, this is totally acceptable, normal, not worth even considering. And I'm thinking about it over and over and over, trying to figure out how to change it, what's wrong, what's going on. The other person's just kind of let it go. And that's okay because that's where they come from. So it can be challenging also to let go of that judgment with others. But if we focus on trying to let that go within ourselves, that does help. And again, reframing those things that come from others in terms of what the meaning is for that. Because that's the thing, right? We give so much meaning to everything, and we consider all the potentials, or many, many potentials. So if someone does something that we feel is disrespectful, we can jump to a conclusion and say, oh, well, they don't respect me. But the reality is it could be a number of things. They're not even aware of the situation. They think it's totally reasonable because that's how they would respond or expect to be, have that reaction on their behalf. There's so many different things that could be going on with them. They could be just having a really bad day. I mean, that kind of stuff happens, and oh, okay. And sometimes we pick up on that energy with them anyway and kind of know oh, yeah, they're having a rough time. So if we can let go of those things and say, I don't know why this person's doing what they're doing, but I'm going to check in with myself, make sure everything that I'm doing is okay and resonates. And then I can just let that go because, I don't have to take care of them. I don't have to make everything perfect. And I don't have to, justify my experience, but I can help, share that with others. So one of the things that I find particularly helpful, and please don't think that I have this nailed down. I'm constantly working on this for myself. So I know that really does help to stop and step back and go, okay, how am I feeling about myself right now? Do I have an unrealistic expectation? Am I reacting to something because I didn't set a boundary when I thought, that would probably help or something like that? So I definitely am always working on that. But one thing that does really help me is to use terms like you can say, what if? I like the term, so what? And not said in a kind of a, snarky way, but anytime something is bothering me, I will, if I first is becoming aware, that's always the first thing. You have to be aware of what you're doing. So if every time I feel like I'm frustrated with something, whether that's technology or something somebody else did, or just a situation not working, once I recognize, oh, I'm really frustrated with this or irritated, then I can start that process of saying, okay, do I want to feel that way? Does that feel good? And of course, I don't want to hold on to that. It doesn't feel good. I can have a lot of justifications up there about why I should be that way, but it doesn't feel good. So then I can take that next step and say, so what is it that I'm telling myself about this situation? And it could be something like, I think everything should just go smoothly and work for me. Okay. And then, so I say, well, is that reasonable? Yeah, probably not. Everything's not going to go perfectly the way I want it. In my view, especially with technology. but I can, take that moment to say, okay, so I have an unrealistic, unreasonable expectation right now. And that's leading to my frustration. And so by acknowledging that and then reframing and saying, things don't always go perfectly, it's not a bad thing. It just is. So that, like, so what? Okay, so that's not working right now. So what? And again, not being snarky, like, oh, well, it means, this. It's just like, so what am I gonna do with it? It is the way it is. Unless I can change something. Sometimes I can do something to make the situation different and then have a different result. If I just stay frustrated all the time and don't make that change, it's going to continue to be that way, much more likely. So just doing that little check-in, that reframe, and saying, okay, so what? Why am I so upset with this? Because I'm telling myself something that's not helpful right now. And so I can make that shift right then. And again, that takes lots of practice. I'm still practicing. I'm still doing that all the time because it's really easy to get frustrated and or expect something to go some way that it didn't, and go, well, why did that happen? And then say, well, I don't know, it happened. And that's another one of those little tools that I've talked about before, is just being curious. Like, I wonder why that didn't happen. Instead of saying, well, that didn't happen, it should have happened. And then I'm, automatically frustrated. But if I say, wow, I wonder why that didn't happen. And then my brain kind of opens up a little bit to say, oh, well, let's problem solve. Maybe it was this, maybe it was that, maybe it's that. And then maybe I solve it in a really short amount of time instead of being wrapped up, for a long time in that frustration or disappointment or whatever it is. So those are just couple little snippets, little tools, tips that help for me personally. So hopefully you'll find those helpful as well. But again, it comes down to that being true to ourselves, honoring who we are, and saying, okay, yeah, I know I'm more reactive to this kind of stuff than some because of my high sensitivity. So I can get on myself about that and say I shouldn't be that way, or I can say, oh, right, so I process things that way. So let me check what my thoughts are about that, see if I can change it, and then I can feel a whole lot better, but not get on myself and feel guilty for having the reaction or having the expectation, but just acknowledging and saying, okay, got it. That's where it came from. Now I'm going to reframe. So lots of words for sharing all of that, but just hopefully that, just gives you a different viewpoint on how to continue honoring yourself while you're engaging with the world. And to kind of help a little with that, I just want to just throw in at the end here a little brief meditation for self-love. So wherever you are, if you can do this now, great. Get in a nice, relaxed but upright position so you have a nice flow through your spine and your energy can flow nicely. And if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes down or just, stare off in front somewhere and soften your gaze. And go ahead and just focus for a few rounds of breath, just on that breath coming into your nose and out through your nose or your mouth, whatever's most comfortable. Not really focusing too much on the type of breathing, just allow it to slow down and get a little deeper. And then as you do that, let's connect with the earth. Feel yourself sending roots down into the earth, all the way down into the center. Allowing those roots to draw up that earth energy into your core, into your center. Just allow yourself to let things go, feel connected with the earth. And then connect through the top of your head to the cosmos. Feel that energy coming in through the top of your head, down into your core. You've got that earthly energy and that cosmic energy coming together. Allowing that breath to continue to be slow and deep, but relaxed. And now imagine that those energies that are coming in, once they reach the point of your heart center, seeing either a luminous pink light surrounding your heart, or if you prefer green, which is the color of the heart chakra, Just see that vibrant light swirling around your heart. And allow that to expand outward just a bit, all around, top, bottom, sides, all surrounding your heart area. That supportive and loving light. And see if you can feel it almost kind of pulse. And maybe it pulses with your breath or its own frequency. But it's really vibrant and alive, this energy surrounding your heart. And as highly sensing people, we tend to spend a lot of time sending our energy outward, helping, sending out that compassion. So right now, see if you can let go of any feeling of selfishness. We're going to focus just on receiving. So we've got this light, this supportive, loving energy coming in, surrounding our heart, and just spend some time allowing that to be absorbed into your heart space, into your whole body, radiating through every cell of your being. Keeping that breath slow and deep. And just be aware of what it feels like to allow this amazing, loving energy into your heart, into your body. Feel that sense of acceptance, validation, support. Allowing yourself, your entire being, to feel loved, supported, and maybe even take note, does that energy feel warm or cool? Whatever you're aware of with the energy, maybe it's kind of fuzzy. Sometimes I actually kind of feel fuzziness in my fingers and toes, as well as my core, when I'm really focused on this loving energy coming in. And just absorb, allow, receive this loving energy into your heart, into your body. And then give yourself permission to send yourself this love, to truly accept yourself, to love yourself. And see if by doing that, you can allow that energy that's been coming in and filling you to expand even more, because you are giving that love and support to yourself, to that deep inner self. And just absorb, receive, and feel what that's like to feel fully supported and loved, valued. Maybe you can reach a place of just feeling like you are love. Take a nice couple deep breaths, just paying attention to that feeling of being love. Let your exhales be full and long, but relaxed. One more deep breath in, receiving all of that love. And then as you exhale, giving that love to yourself, through every cell of your body. And now become aware of your fingers and your toes, maybe wiggle them a little bit. Become aware of where you are in the room, where the seat that you're on. Just come back fully to being present in the moment in this room. And of course, you can do that meditation every day if you like, anytime, anywhere. Just remembering to love yourself and receive that love. Honor yourself enough to receive that love from the earth, from the universe, from others, and from yourself. Well, thank you for being with me as always. It's really my mission to help as many highly sensing folks as possible to be able to move beyond that struggle and that overwhelm that's so common, and getting to that place of really embracing and honoring ourselves and moving into thriving and using the skills that we have as highly sensing people to make the most amazing life possible. So thanks for joining me. As always, you can reach out to my email is in the notes for the show, and you can connect. I'd love to talk with you. And if you are struggling, feel free to reach out for a discovery call. We can talk about how we can help you a little bit more detailed way to really be able to realize the amazing benefits of your sensitivity. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will see you again next time.